Hi all. I think I'm just between, not exactly the lunch, between coffee and coffee break. I think most of you have taken coffee or still taking there. My request is come back here. I may take 15 minutes. Then I will be here for the rest of the day. We can have a discussion as well. So the topic what I'm talking here is about my experience, what I practice. I do have a couple of real-time case studies, 1 or 2 case studies I can take during this session as well. So let's come back. It's about a lot of change. Change is a way of life. So we have been saying a change in last couple of days. So it's all about how do we cope up with this change. Technology is going exponential. The user aspirations are higher. As a result, the demand from our customers are higher. So one of our friends was talking about speed. Yes. So there has been a lot of demand, and how are we going to cope up with this? So let's look into this in the world of digitalization. Banks. Every day you switch on the televisions, you will see a bank or an ATM and a lot of queue. Bank is no longer, today is a safety. We used to go back, my parents or some of us have gone back for banking for safety. It is no longer safety. And mobile, I think my friend, she has talked about mobile. Mobile, where is it heading to? Coming back to say some of the products in retail like Nike, it's no longer for shoes, it's for health, it's for sports. Hospitals, it's no longer we go for treatment. Today we go for hospitals for wellness. So there has been a lot of change which has been taking place. How are we going to cope? And how are we going to apply that specifically in the IT industry from end to end and also connect the dots in what we deliver to the customer as a value is what we look at it. So in the era of digitalization, we can look at it being a customer, being a vendor, being a user. Wherever you are, you can look at being a partners. There has been a lot of emphasis on digital. You can see digital information, interaction, company, and so on. 2 days back, I think I not seen today's paper, in Times of India, the first page which came is all about digitalization in India. The entire banking is going to be on mobile. So I think in the context where we are in India, where we are talking about, it makes a sense, and how are we heading in this is what my topic is all about. So let's see whether the stakeholders are getting onto this digitalization. Are we able to keep up the pace? So the answer is definitely yes. Just have a look into this loaded slide. We are talking about speed. Yeah, it is speed we are talking about. How are we going to adapt to this radical changes? And we are talking about having a employee force where we will be recruiting graduates or youngsters, juniorization, and how are we going to manage them? So how an organization can get on to innovation? An organization has to get on to innovation. The only basic thing is we have to be agile. I'm talking about agility, not the agile software development. That's what the scope is all about here. So if you really look into various aspects here, it could be bringing this agile way of doing, bring lean into that, agility, leanity. Then we talk about serviceability, that is delivering a value or crafting an experience with the users. So all together, we have various components here. So I can say again, it's a speed, and how are we going to accelerate the speed? So I'll be jumping on to DevOps shortly, and I will not be talking about what DevOps here. My understanding is most of us have been practicing that or might have been talked in some other sessions. So how are we going to do this? Probably we can bring agility into what we are doing, and we call that as DevOps in today's world. And how are we going to get into this? So DevOps is not just about tooling. DevOps to us is about culture change. It is about mindset change. It is about high performance culture. It is about thinking. It is about sharp thinking. So how are we going to get into a culture of a sharp thinking or high performance culture when there has been a huge aspirations from the users as well as a high demand? So what we are doing at our organization is we bring design thinking. So I had a privilege to work in Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, and I was doing a research on this topic, which is about design thinking. It was almost 1.5 years back, I did design thinking with a professor there, then came back and started to lead the practice, Agile and DevOps, and trying to connect the dots. Yes, it works. It is not a GAN or it is not a philosophy I am here. I'm talking about what design thinking is all about. You can look at it. Design thinking is all about looking at a problem in different ways. Looking into the problem in different ways from the user perspective. In design thinking, we keep the user in the center of the problem solving. We look at it, how the problems can be solved in different ways. Talk about telephone booths. We don't have a telephone booth. Probably in some cases I have seen last couple of weeks I was traveling in a countryside where I could able to see the phone booths have been translated or converted to coffee vending machines. So it's all about thinking different. So design thinking, in my view, definitely fits here. What is design thinking is all about? It brings about sense and respond, reason for existence. We talked about several products that are not existing today, and we talk about the services what we deliver. Maybe in next 4 or 5 years, let's ask a question, what are we doing today? Are we going to be doing the same thing? Definitely not. The services what we deliver, could be products or could be anything what we deliver to the end users, will it exist? The answer is may not be. So that's about reason for existence, challenging the assumptions. Do we have the system within the organization which helps to create a system which will help us to have challenges, whether the employees have been encouraged to challenge in the existing world. And connecting the dots, when you get an idea, the idea can be used to bubble out. Today it's not about working with our vendors as a competitors. I'm here to take some lessons back, and so that I can connect those dots as an idea, I can bubble it. So the competition, working with our competitors or friends, it's going to be a co-opetition where we'll work for more social cause or could be a bigger cause for the community. Mastering the teamwork, and also we talked about design thinking is all about from the user perspective. Let's look at design thinking. We talked again. This was used for the products, but this can be very well applied anywhere. It can be very well applied in the IT services what we talk about. Okay, so let me take through what we are practicing in DevOps as well as design thinking at our organization. Look at this diagram. This is a loaded diagram again. The purpose of putting across here is it's again on an agile culture. We have an agile culture here where we have a backlog system, sprint backlog, and we do have a system to look into the operations and deploying a working software. So what we are talking about here is, we are creating a culture of experimentation. If you look at bottom, we have an expert pool of technical members, and we have users. So we have a team we call as user avatars, where we have an end user involved within our design as co-creators. It is not about when we deploy the working software, from the day one, we have the end user working with us to shape up the product or the releases what we talk about. And rest of the things is, pretty simple. Most of the organizations, all of us are working on. And here, if you look at it, we bring this, the process, products, and the environment together. And we also have the continuous culture of planning, integration, deployment, and all those things. So if you talk about the DevOps principles, where we have a Dev and Ops, coming together, then also Dev and Ops, the feedback mechanism between Dev and Ops is going to be shrinking. It's going to be a common team or a single team. And also, if you talk about the third principle, or one more aspect of DevOps, is about experimentation. So if you look at this, that's what we talk about. In one of the projects, what we are talking about here is for a major oil and gas project, where we have 2,000 plus members working on from strategy till the deliverables. We had a situation of having different teams, operations teams, the application management or a services or a support team, or the application development and the testing team. We have to bring this together under a common leadership. That's what I'm talking about here. I will have some more examples to take you through that. Then how did we achieve this? This is the framework or the approach what we thought we have. Design thinking being a user or a client centric. Most of the time we may not be interacting with the user. I made it a client centric, but in today's situation there is a system we can interact with the users. If you look at this, there is a system which has been built to go back to the client on every day. So there are negotiation meeting happens with the client on every day. Am I talking about a product owner? Maybe much beyond that. We will have the user interaction on day-to-day here, and you can look at the various items here. We have a dispatcher. It's a role. It's not an additional role we are talking about. It's someone who is a Scrum Master or a service leader. They can become a dispatcher here. Dispatcher is one who can interact with the user community and translate that to an idea. That idea can become a feature that can get rolled out as fast as possible. So rest of the things, we have a daily meetings. We also have a ping pong meeting. If there are any escalations, we solve that within a day. So the summary of this is, within a day, we will go back to the users and we reshape. So this is leading for us to a DevOps world, where we may be taking the idea to a feature and maybe deploying on a daily basis. My intention of saying DevOps is not about a daily release, but if there is a need, it can be on a daily basis. There are organizations such as GAFA, that is Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple. They may be deploying multiple workable software or releases on a day. I'm just taking an example here. DevOps need not be a day-to-day release. It can be a 2-week sprint as well. It's about bringing the idea of development and operations together. So coming to connecting dots, you can look at it here. We have this agile way of doing, that is agility. Bring automation. Automation is a key. It can be test automation. It can be making the reports automated, end-to-end automation, and ensure that architecture, probably cloud or a legacy way of doing it, can be converted to cloud, and ensure that the technology can be scaled up to the next level. Then service management, definitely we need that. The basic ITIL or service management principles can be applied. We do not need to reinvent. Then that's what we call as a DevOps. Most of the time when I have a discussion with the client, we say DevOps, then people will talk about investment and they will never get there. DevOps is not about investment. DevOps is not about tooling. DevOps is all about mindset. Try to bring your different level of stakeholders together, make them talk. Break the silos. That's a DevOps way of doing it. So we are talking about cross-functional collaboration. This is a classic example. We have taken this snapshot. We talked about the process just now. The retrospective is nothing but we have 360-degree way of getting the feedback. The feedback is not from Dev and Ops. DevOps to us at CGI, it's about from the requirement to deliverables. And also last couple of months we started to provide coaching for recruitment team. We started to provide coaching for the resourcing team. We are looking for those kind of candidates during the recruitment where somebody has curiosity, not just going for your Java or DevOps engineer. We are talking about, there is nothing like DevOps engineer as such. We are looking for someone who has curiosity, comes with an experimentation culture. Those are the candidates we definitely would like to hire. So if you look at this, DevOps 360 is about connecting the dots from end to end within the organization. We do have digital tools, and most of the time we prefer to use a lean Kanban dashboards which have been displayed next to the teams. We can look into the backlog, we can look into the work in progress, we can look into the done state. The idea is the work in progress can be limited or can be strict so that we can deliver faster. Again, the theme here is about speed. So continuous planning, continuous delivery. How are we going to do this? We talked about in the previous page, continuous feedback mechanism to the end user or to the client. This is a classic example I have, which happens on a day-to-day basis. Are we doing a strategy meetings on day-to-day basis? The answer is yes. Are we doing the QA reviews on day-to-day basis? The answer is yes. I'm talking about a high culture, a high performance organization. If you look at it, most of the time there are areas which have been built using automation. But there are a lot of face-to-face communication happens to capture the requirement and also to ensure that we deliver what the clients have been asking for. So look at this success story. This is for one of the oil and gas major. And it talks about cost, speed to the market, the risk, and the throughput. And you can see the dev and ops coming together. Not only that, it brings the entire gamut of all the ingredients or all the components within the organization to deliver. It's not just only the client and the supplier organization. We have multiple vendors. At least we have around 20 vendors operating in 36 locations across the globe. So we have applied the DevOps concept where the loop across them got shrinked and we can able to talk to them on a day-to-day basis or when there is a need. So what we are talking about here is user empathy. What the user is looking for, we are able to provide. In this particular application, a product what we are talking about is, it's an oil and gas major where the engineers go some 1,000 or 2,000 miles down to get the oil from the refineries. If there is any defect in any of the system, their responding back becomes difficult. So we have a smart applications. The smart application will tell us immediately through the monitoring systems, through an SMS, will tell us where the errors are. We fix the error and we deploy it. It can happen within minutes is what I'm talking about. It can happen in an half an hour or an hour. That's the culture I'm looking at it. We cannot have a system where we go for a cab meeting and we will say whether this release can be done. I'm not talking about that. It's not possible in a culture where we are talking about. It's a mission critical application where the deployment happens in a half an hour or so. That's what the application we are talking about here. User empathy is nothing but the user wants this, and based on that, we are delivering what the users are requiring. And this is what the feedback we have got, just to say, creating a user experience. Very important thing about DevOps is about culture building. That's where design thinking has been brought here. How is this DevOps and design thinking is coming together? Go back and try. You can fusion together. It can get merged together. DevOps, the very important thing is it's a mindset. If you are going for a mindset culture, bring design thinking. Some of the components of design thinking, it will work. If you go for a drama or any movie, you have various characters. The characters are, you have a hero, you have a villain, and you have a victim. Most of the time, including myself in the industry, I have seen that if there is any issue, I go back to a person or another member of my team. That is a superhero culture. But do not have a superhero culture, eliminate that. Transform that. How do you do that? You will have a hero becoming a coach. Hero becomes a coach. Then a victim ask the victim, transform the victim to become a challenger. You need somebody in the system to challenge. Then you have, we talked about hero, we talked about villain and victim. Villain has to become a challenger, and victim has to become a creator. We are talking about abductive thinking, something where you start with something where you don't have nothing. You don't have nothing, but still you have to come up. I'm talking about there will not be user requirement where as an organization you come up based on your previous experience, come back with your experimentation culture and provide a feature which can get onto the deployment. So for that, create an experimentation culture is what we are looking for. And one of the experience what I have here is working on one of the project what I talked about, 2,000 plus members working on, where our members used to come on Saturdays and Sundays for doing a deployment. I'm not saying that today they are not coming, but probably it would have been reduced. That's an eye-opener for us. We went back and looked into why the developer is coming on Saturday, Sunday. Most of the time, they have to do the releases. We don't need a developer to do the releases. Probably I need a different set of folks to do the release and deployment. So we did automation. We looked into the situation. We bought infrastructure as a code. We did the automation. And now developer will get an SMS. If there is any defect in the code, developer will get an SMS, or the manager will get an email or an SMS, and they will go and fix it. There is a lot of ownership, and again an eye-opener. We could able to give back Saturdays and Sundays to our employees. Most of the time when we do a release, even though it happens on Saturdays and Sundays, you will not see a army of employees or members seated in doing a release. There will not be any commentary on Monday because everything has been taken care in a way of automation. Okay, that's what we are talking about here. And also one of the key criteria of this transformation what we are talking about here is in design thinking, our managers have been empowered to see what is going slow. It's not about working on KPIs. The first and foremost thing is what's exactly slowing down. Could be a member. Member is not motivated. How do you want to motivate? It's like an iceberg. The top 10% is visible. The top 10% can be looked at by clicking a button, you get KPIs. DevOps, how do I measure? You have MTTR and there are so many parameters. But how do I measure if a member is not able to put his 100%? You cannot. Okay? It's about, it's not about continuous flow. It's about creating a user experience, the member experience. It's about happiness index is what I'm talking about. So bring DevOps here, culture, mindset, empower the members, and understood that 90% bring the motivation, inspiration aspect so that we as an organization can create a high performance culture. So DevOps to us within CGI or the engagement which we are working, define your DevOps. DevOps is a marathon. I'm sure you're waiting for a coffee. The sessions are going on marathon like this. If you are putting a hand in DevOps, it's a marathon. You will never get there. You talk about bringing your deployment time from 20 hours to 3 minutes. I'm talking about zero. There's no time involved. But there'll be an expectation. We are talking about a high performance culture where there is an experimentation. To me, DevOps is a marathon. You'll never get there. You have to start looking from a different perspective so that you can start changing or adapting to the different ways of working. Delimit your scope. DevOps is not just about, always DevOps is about only development and operation. Yes, if it is there, it's fantastic. But it can be development, you can do a DevOps by yourself. It can be operations or production, you can do DevOps. It's about the way of thinking. And identify pioneers, you need them. You need evangelists to do that. And there are multiple approaches. You can have a continuous feedback mechanism. That's very important for us. And prioritization is very important. I have seen there is one more speaker in the afternoon talks about prioritization. I'm just leaving there because in the high performance culture, we have to talk about prioritization. And there are various steps here. It's about defining the DevOps again and ensuring that you have a continuous flow, continuous delivery or continuous pipeline or continuous flow, and also definitely the culture and mindset. I'm not talking about those aspects of culture is all about, DevOps, the culture is about comms, that is culture, automation, lean, metrics, sharing. So bring those things, for DevOps culture building. I'm sure, this is something, in my experience, I can provide this, to this community here. If you have not seen this, this is something tried and tested by myself and my team here. It's a maturity model. Today's situation, how do I know, I'm working in DevOps? There's no way. So you can take this up and you can start modifying this. DevOps, you will have regression. You can look at various things, transparency, culture, architecture, development, test and QA, and you also have environment and rest of the other things here. So bring this together. There is a detailed Excel spreadsheets we have. In the interest of time, I don't have this. If you are interested, drop me a note. I will happy to share, and we can take on to the next level in the industry. So every organization has their own values and principles. Work on that so that it can bring on. Am I here to create, the CMMI or quality level 5? No, my intention is not that. As an organization, we need to understand, am I working on DevOps? I need to check, my pulse. That's what I'm talking about. And by doing this, I'm sure, we get into achieving operational efficiency. Main thing is, we will be able to connect the dots for bigger benefits. So that's about the session here. Thanks for listening. I'll be here for rest of the day. Happy to take up any questions, but however, I'll leave this open this for Q&A.
Give any specific example. You spoke about design thinking all kind of everywhere in the presentation, linking it to DevOps. If in a simple terms, how does thinking and design thinking were to be different? You use the word keeping the client in the center. To me, that is a very common way of thinking. In what way design thinking is different than common way of thinking? Just few words.
Yeah, very good. In what way design thinking is different from a common way? I think I touched base on that. Design thinking talks about when you do a design, especially when we start looking at the service, you have to question your existence. There are so many times we will provide a delivery, it might not exist for a year. So it talks about existence. How long this particular service or a product will exist, and what are the different areas it can fail. How can I create a product or a service which has less chances of failure. So those are the aspects, and in some of the mission critical application we'll have zero tolerance, we'll apply that. So those are the areas it will definitely help us. It's a mindset change as well.
Any more questions?